What's going on, y'all? It's your man, Mike Deloach, coming back to you with some more content of a black man in New Mexico. Yes, sir. So, today, one of the things I wanted to talk about is how I was able to distinguish, each race. So, I mean, if you go back and take a look at my video as far as, you know, why New Mexico and even black is the minority. I talk about, being from Georgia and the fact that it's mostly only black and white. And, there was only a sprinkle of your Hispanics or your Latino or your Mexican culture. And, coming out here, it's a melting pot. So at first, I was definitely, I would say, overwhelmed, you know, not only in the fact that the population is greater, but black is the minority, and here it is. You got more of other races, and the biggest question was at first was like, dang, like, how do you tell who is who? You know what I mean? And like I said, at first sight, a lot of women may look alike, you know, and that could vary just depending on the style and how someone dressed or how they rock their hair. But it came down to more of the features and the lingo and the language as far as being able to distinguish what race was what race. And for example, whereas a easy way that you can tell, like, even Mexican women versus your Latino, your Caribbean women, if you would, is the fact that most women that were from Mexico, some of them still have a hard time speaking English. Some of them, they may know English, or may not be as fluent, so they may be a little shy when it comes to speaking English. It's almost like me when it comes to Spanish. Like, I know a little bit of Spanish, but I'm not confident enough to really try to, talk to someone in Spanish because I'm really not that fluent. So they have that same, it's the same thing whenever, it comes to them speaking English. They're shy, they may know a few words, or the English and the Spanish language is set up differently. So I feel like you say more words in English, so sometimes when it comes to being descriptive or being specific about certain things, or want to say it properly, they have trouble when it comes to speaking English and really getting their thought across to where you can understand it. And so that was like the biggest thing to differentiate between the women from Mexico versus, again, your Latino women or your Caribbean women, because your Latino or Caribbean women, they may, or 9 times out of 10, they're very well fluent in English, and they don't have an issue speaking English. They can flip flop, within conversation, and kind of speak that Spanglish too and mix in some Spanish with the English or whatever, because like I said, they know the English language, so that was one way to distinguish, more the Latino versus the Mexican woman, because again, that Mexican woman would prefer to speak Spanish because, that is her first language, so that's what she preferred to speak. And, they have trouble speaking English, so that was, one of the things as far as just the language and the lingo. And even knowing if, a girl, may have that Mexican culture or background where, her grandparents may have been from Mexico, but here it is, she may not even know Spanish and all she speaks is English, so that was, that was a thing too, that was kind of interesting. But, when it came down to the features, that was kind of like a giveaway too. And when I speak of features, I think about my native women, and comparing the native women to the Latino women or the Mexican women, because, not to take anything away from the native women, but within the, Mexican and Latino culture, you got more of, how they say the phrase, black don't crack. And, you see a lot of black women that still got that figure in their later ages, or, the middle ages, 50 or whatnot. You see that. Think of, Jennifer Lopez. She was one of those in the Latino culture that, they raved about as far as still having that figure, even though she was getting up in age. But you see that a lot with the Latino culture. Don't get me wrong, you still have, some of those who may be, a little overweight or whatnot. But with the Latino Mexican culture, you see a lot of those women who are in shape and who tend to stay in shape. And just that figure alone is like, dang, well, she must be Mexican, or she got to be a Latino. She got figure like that because, and even with the Filipino women, like, it's hard to, I don't say it's hard, but it's rare that you find a Filipino type of woman or Asian woman that's really built, like the Latino, Mexican, and the black culture, and you got some white women that's thick too, but it's rare that you see that in, again, the Asian and the Filipino culture. Went back to the native women, like the native, it was kind of rare that you saw that type of woman in the native culture too. I mean, don't get me wrong, they had their, they got their Pocahontases, out the group. You got some that's just strikingly gorgeous, and some of them may have some figure. Like I said, it's rare that you'll see someone with some figure, but I've seen one with some pretty faces and nice shapes. And but with the native culture, you see a lot of that, those unproportionate type bodies, kind of heavier set on the top with the smaller legs, and like I said, I don't want to take anything away from anybody, but because you can have that sloppy person in every race, don't get me wrong, it does exist, but when it comes down to the majority and the general population, that's kind of more what you see, and back to the lingo too with the native women, like, or the native culture, if you would, like, they have their own, what's the word I'm looking for? Their own dialect, if you would, you know what I mean? And within each tribe. And so even the way, you may hear somebody communicating in their native language, when you would know that, okay, like, that's not Spanish. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of familiar with some Spanish words and can pick up on some Spanish words, but the dialect that they're using is almost like foreign, like hearing somebody talk from Australia or something. And like I said, that's just a comparison, but it's obviously it's not Spanish, so it's like, okay, like, they must be native. You know what I mean? But again, back to the features too. Like, you'll be able to tell, with the native culture, they have that red skin, if you would, kind of brown, darkish brown skin with some of the culture, and when it comes down to their features and like their cheekbones and their jawbones is, excuse me, is structurally different from your Mexican or Latino culture or your Filipino culture, and with the Filipinos, they kind of have more of like the, I want to say like the square faces, but rounded faces, if you would. I don't know if that's a good descriptive way to put it, but, and even, of course, with the eyes, you can tell with the, the Filipinos and the Asians, so those are kind of easy to distinguish, and even with them, it's a small culture, so they try to kind of group up within their culture, so sometimes it's easy to spot them as well, and of course you got your Vietnamese and whatnot who, got your nail salons and, your Chinese restaurants, and not to be so stereotypical, but hey, those are the ones that's basically in charge of those regions, if you would, or those areas, so again, it's kind of easier to distinguish, that type of race, but it kind of took a while, but once I really got into the environment and really, interacting and kind of put myself out there, it became easier to distinguish what race is what race. And, nowadays, it's, like I say, it's pretty, I can point out, just by looking or just by hearing the talk or whatever. But, I just wanted to, break down a few things, as far as, what helped me along my journey as far as being able to distinguish each race. Because at first, yeah, it was kind of, I won't say confusing, but, something I had to adapt to and get adjusted to and be able to understand. So to know who I'm dealing with and to know, kind of how to come at that person, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's starting conversation or whatever the case may be, or just getting something done, but that's all I got for now. Be on the lookout for the next video as far as how everybody look alike, and I kind of go more into like the styles and how each style within each culture, kind of gives this generalization to how a lot of people look alike, and of course some of those styles may not be one specific culture, but it still makes people look alike. But if you haven't, be sure to subscribe to the channel. People checking out the videos but not subscribing, so hey, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, also share the video with other people so that we can get your input. And if you've new to New Mexico, or haven't been into a melting pot living situation like myself, or came into something like that, let us know your experience as well. If it resonates with you, and give us your input and give us your feedback, but hey, until next time, it's your man Mike Deloach, coming back to you with a black man in New Mexico. But until next time, we're all back. But in the meantime, you gotta put in the work. You better get on your job. You better get on your job. I put in work. You better get on your job. You better get on your job.